Yep.
It's quite a good time indeed.
Yep. Once again, just opening up
Today's
the Cape
Batman
stuff.
Day, I guess.
No, actually, well, it might have been yesterday. I'm not quite sure how they count Batman days.
Roundabout.
I don't know if it's on a lunar or a
You know,
whatever calendar. Yeah. I just always know it's. But well, what I know is that the event would have been today because that was the day we went to the lecture and did the thing. So, okay. Alrighty. Are you ready, my friend? Avast me, hearties, and welcome once again to Full Stream Ahead. I be your Captain Charlie, the Professor Esser. And with me, as always, is me first mate and skinny rich friend.
it's Mozz.
Hey, Mozz, glad you're here. Glad as always. And once again, we live in a world of capes and lunatics, gods and monsters. And in matters of love and the law, you sometimes need a She-Hulk attorney at law. Mozzie, tonight's episode, mean, green, and straight poured into these jeans. Episode 5 of season 1, She-Hulk discovers Titania owns the name She-Hulk. There's an error in this, which we're going to get to when we get to the actual show, and is suing her for trademark infringement. Our director, Anu Valia. Dana Schwartz, of course, is our staff writer. Dana Schwartz, why does that name sound familiar? Jessica Gao, of course, created the whole thing for television. John Buscema, along with Stan Lee, created the She-Hulk, who also created the Hulk with Jack Kirby. And Stan Lee created with Jack Kirby, Buscema with Stan Lee for the She-Hulk. And Dana Schwartz is the staff writer, and Cody Ziegler, also a fellow hardest working person in show business, the other staff writer. Okay, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this episode, Mozzie.
Lazy synopsis writers, I guess. That's the issue, right?
Well, I enjoy this episode. Okay.
I did too, immensely. It was fun to I mean, like, I really, if they're gonna be like a lawyery show, I want to see some lawyery stuff. You know, it'd be nice to have like shows in the world of Marvel that are just a show about like any other show, but just in the Marvel universe. That'd be kind of fun to see, an actual exploration of what superheroes mean to the legal system.
Exactly.
We got, bits and pieces of that, which is kind of cool, but I want more of that too. I'm eager for it.
Well, the reality is, here's what I will say. It's like the first time they met, it's a sternum punch, and it's again outclassed because it's She-Hulk versus Titania. Second time they meet, it's a legal battle, again outclassed because it's She-Hulk versus Titania. So I actually thought they were going to actually make a point about the hyphen, which is yes. See, that is an interesting aspect. It's about the difference between Spider-Man, Spider-Man, and Spider-Man. And the fact that these are actually 3 different words and 3 different ways that you can present it. And She-Hulk traditionally is with a hyphen like Spider-Man. But in this, so I thought they were leaning towards that joke, because I did notice that every time Titania puts up She-Hulk, it is without a hyphen. But of course, in our title card, it is with the hyphen.
Is that right?
That is the actual trademark that Marvel has, is She-Hulk with a hyphen. Although I guess now they also own She-Hulk without a hyphen.
Wow.
Yes. Of course, we open up this episode with Ched explaining trademark law to Janet, which is delightful, but not wrong. And to be honest about it, to be clear, it's like, even even Mallory Book, who absolutely knows trademark law, is asking her the exact same question. And then Jen has to point, and Jen makes the mistake of saying, "Why did he says, well, does Doctor Strange trademark his name? Does Thor?" It says you literally pick two people who use their names. So it's a fun way to address.
But it's funny, that is the
yeah.
argument they use to win, just with more supporting evidence, but that's the central argument they use to win.
Well, sort of. What they actually use. So Thor uses the name Thor because that's his name. Doctor Strange uses the name Doctor Strange because that's his actual name. His actual name is...
it's Steve. Well, okay, I guess that's his last name.
Yeah, because he earned that doctorate, man. Don't you? He's not like Doctor Doom who just like sticks it on there.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah,
fair enough.
there
You're
are
right,
people that call themselves doctors. That actual people like Dr. Otto Octavius, like, look at you like, really? Exactly what thesis panel did you pass? What did you write for your doctoral thesis? Thank you very much. I mean, really, technically, if
I thought, like, yeah, I guess it just meant like it's a known thing. That's what you use. You had adopted it, hence it was yours.
Yeah,
but it's more than that. It was actually their real name.
It is actually a lot more than that, and that's the thing. That is the central, and this is fun. I'm actually really hoping Legal Eagle does an episode on this one, because they actually do not do a lot of law on this, because they realize that, actually none of us know how to write procedurals. And it's I was reading an article about that recently. It's like, we were like, it's going to be this great thing, and then someone said, oh wait, Dan Soul, who actually did the whole run that we really love, that we're homaging, is an actual lawyer. And so we're maybe a little bit over our heads here, but they can do basic law. And
I've got to believe they could have found a comic book enthusiast who also happens to be a lawyer.
Oh, I'm sure they could have, and honestly, they could have paid Sewell to just come on and be on the show.
I mean, really, like,
but that is an extra person, you got to remember.
Right. I mean, I thought the show could have used it, because I wanted a little bit more of that.
I would love a little bit more than that. I'm hoping in season 2 we get that. I think this is much more of an establishing series season. That's the thing. I think like a lot of what they're doing in this current phase is building the universe.
Fair enough.
Then when you get to the next, like Loki season 2, we have a sandbox built. Now we get to play in it. And now we're going to do the universe hopping, which, as we've learned, is not a good thing. Don't hop in the universes, friends. It's bad for you. No matter what Rick Sanchez tells you, it's not good to go between universes. But in this story, and this is also interesting, because this is like the first one where we don't really have any kind of physical confrontation. This is purely a intellectual pursuit, which I think is great. It's a Steven Universe story, which I like which is where basically you use your words to solve the problem instead of actually hitting someone. Because anybody can hit someone, but to actually solve the problem, you have to use your words. And that is what I like about, that's one of the many things I like about this episode. And that, quite frankly, it's a solid legal argument that they wind up making. Now, of course, in this, we get the return of Todd. The actor who plays Todd has stated that this is, it's not, don't oversell this character. He is meant to be exactly what he seems like. Bruce, Todd, if he had both of his parents, basically.
Which one is Todd?
The guy who called her a specimen. That many people have said, is this actually supposed to be Madman? Is this Samuel Stearns' brother? Is this some other character that we're going to see? Because he has this obsession with superhumanity, But it's entirely possible that it is just literally fanning. Like, it's not even that he even likes superhumans or wants to be a superhuman. He just is a fan of their work. You know, it's like, you want to be near the ultimate fighting champion, but it's not like you want to fight the ultimate fighting champion.
His motivations kind of don't make sense to me. Like, if that's what he's really turned on by, wouldn't you want to be with the woman that be like, come on, baby, do the thing, And
Well,
and
yeah,
like
but the thing is he doesn't have, first off, he doesn't have the social graces to do that.
fair enough.
And to be fair, the guy who did have the social graces to do that, eventually, when it actually came into reality, was just as much of a douche as Todd. And that's really the takeaway point, is that, yeah, it's easy to love She-Hulk. Just like it's easy to love Steve Rogers once he's Captain America. But, you're the person like Peggy Carter who can see Steve for who he is and see why Steve is a great guy to be with, and why no other beefcake, because there's no shortage of them, is not as attractive to you as scrawny Steve Rogers. It's an important point that the picture that Peggy keeps on her desk is scrawny Steve Rogers, because that was the guy who actually was caring and compassionate, and not just another stooge. Now,
right, when it wasn't as advantageous to be that courageous.
Yeah, the guy who would throw himself on a grenade because, hey, you know what? If I save people's lives,
right? It's easy to be courageous when you're Captain America, not when you're,
Exactly. You got to have the courage first, and then the big biceps up. Which is why every so often they do a story where they revisit, where they undo Captain America's super soldiering, and still he somehow manages to be a badass. So it's actually pretty impressive with the character of Steve Rogers. I mean, granted, it's fiction, but
right.
It's like a lifetime of dedication.
So was Rocky, right? But
exactly
doesn't stop people from finding endless inspiration in the story.
And the story of Rocky is a great parallel, because again, it's important to always remember Rocky loses. At the end of Rocky loses. He wins in Rocky 2 and Rocky 3 eventually. But he actually loses in the original Rocky. And that is actually the point of it, is that it's not about whether or not you win. It's whether or not you go to distance, whether or not you get back up and say, I can do this all day. That's why they wrote the whole musical, Moving right along.
Yeah. So who's the guy, her assistant? Not an assistant, but he's also a lawyer, I guess, but like her.
Puglisi.
So what's it? Did he always speak that way, or was that a new affectation he's taken on? Because I don't remember him.
Weird,
right? Because I thought he was like at first prim and proper, like talking like a lawyer. Now all of a sudden he's like, been smoking with Snoop Dogg for 3 days, and that's how he talks now.
Well, I guess what it actually is, and I'm going to give you an explanation.
Okay.
It is him speaking to Nikki now, who's the paralegal. Who is also,
but no. I feel like you would do like that weird thing for a moment as a kitschy thing, but like he stays talking that way throughout the whole episode.
Yeah, I know, because what was it? I think it was called The Practice, and there was it had I want to say it was Dermot Mulroney, but it's also where we first met Catherine Mannheim. Okay. They were lawyers in Boston. Boston Legal is a spinoff of it, in the same way.
Ally McBeal?
No. Well, maybe it was a spinoff of Ally McBeal. No, but it was called The Practice. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
One of the members of The Practice, which also has as its core theme the idea that we're going to have our secretary be a partner. and or have the paralegal be a partner, and the paralegal's like, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, I understand what you're trying to be nice. I'm here and I'm dedicated to the cause of getting innocent people off. Lawyer Ganda, as we call it. That's a whole thing with propaganda, and that there's actually a lot of lawyer Ganda too out there. If you actually are interested in watching the thing, the entire legal system is usually, when it's dramatized, will usually take either perspective and make that the hero. So you can either have good cops or you can have good lawyers. But anytime you have a bad cop and a bad lawyer, everyone just thinks, yes, bad cops and bad lawyers are good. So that's a whole other thing, because we've had those as well. If you think about shows like The Shield, and I'm trying to think of a good bad lawyer show. Well, I guess one could argue
Breaking Bad, kind of Saul Goodman, or even
Saul Goodman. There we go. That's the perfect bad lawyer, and everyone thinks, oh, isn't he so great? He gets all the drug dealers off. Hooray for Saul Goodman. And that's the point, is that, so when you talk about propaganda, which is a very big issue right now, and good old Dick Wolf keeps on getting getting pulled through the ringer for it, because he writes cop shows, and cop shows are, by their definition, either propaganda or cops being bad that you then start to like. It's like, you can't follow the villain's story and have it be a villain's story unless you let the villain be a villain. And in cases like Law and Order, what you want is, you want good cops who actually have a moral code and actually don't want to break the law, and being the evidence to people about how a cop should be, so that young people growing up in the world will say, oh, a cop is actually a righteous person who does good. So if I ever become a cop, I'll be a righteous person who does good. Unfortunately, the reality of cops has a lot of people that push the other way. And when you're in it, because we don't have enough good cops pushing back, which is what you need all the good cops, because, as you always say, there's 99% good cops and 1% bad apples. But the good cops need to push back on the bad apples. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, that's a whole other story. But that's propaganda versus lawyer Ganda. And then, of course, if you ever watch any good lawyer show, it's always cops that are too lazy, willing to take their first impression. If you watch Perry Mason, that's always the case. It's always these incompetent DAs and cops who just said, well, clearly that person's the murderer.
Yeah, all you have to do to get away with murder is make a reasonable, like, you just have to let the cop's job be easy. Give them easy clues to follow that lead to someone else. Even if it's not a terribly strong case, if it makes the job of the cop easier, if he can go home early on Tuesday or Friday, whatever for them, they'll do it. So that's all you really got to do, I guess, right?
Yeah. Well, like, in real life, that is the theoretical plan. In fictional life, it never is. And that's the thing, is like, in fictional life, it's like, no, you actually got Columbo on this case. Which is why I always love the fact that Columbo just works with rich sociopaths. That's the best part about Columbo, is, he works with rich sociopaths who do exactly that. They just frame somebody else nice and easy. Say, look how easy it would be to convince this guy. And you know what? 9 times out of 10, lazy cop's going to do it. But no, today you got Columbo. He's got that. It just keeps on sitting with him, keeps on bugging him. But anyway, but that's not the case here, because this is just This is just trademark. I always keep on mixing up my trademark and copyright law. This is trademark law, not copyright law, because neither person is creating a creative entity in the way that you could theoretically trademark certain magic tricks that are actual performance pieces. Because you can't trademark a magic trick, but you can trademark a performance.
I thought trademark was only for, like, a naming.
I'm sorry, copyright. And again, I'm doing it again.
Oh,
this is why I'm not a lawyer, Mozz. You see, I'd be very bad at it because they would. Are you talking about trademark or copyright? Because those are two different things. I know, and I just don't know the difference.
I'm at the other left.
Exactly. But and so it is, and again, it is interesting that we dealt with copyright last episode, trademark this issue. See, we're doing a lot of white collar crime.
Interesting.
Which, if you think about it, is where most crime gets committed. You know, this is why I've always said that the real interesting thing for Dick Wolf to ever do is Law and Order Bunko Squad. Except I don't think Bunko Squad. I don't think police still have dedicated Bunko Squads anymore, which is a loss. Bunko was what they used to call the people who basically investigated fraud. So if you were selling snake oil, as a Mrs. Titania literally is, if you were selling snake oil, these would be the people that would come in here and say, are you meeting the letter of the law, especially in Los Angeles? Oh, here's a fun thing I thought about today. Why it works that the show is placed in Los Angeles, because they don't really have dramatic seasons there. And because of that, the amount of time between the first episode and this episode could have been several months. And we really wouldn't know unless someone stopped to celebrate a holiday. And the reality is a lot of time has passed here, because this is one of the key components of this, is that first episode where Jen punches Titania in the sternum and she gets called She-Hulk, and Titania plots her revenge, which she executes in this episode, took several months to occur. And we see this in the fact that she goes on these multiple dates, because first she goes on one date, and we can assume there's a couple of weeks involved in this entire period.
Just in the prototyping of the packaging of all that stuff, getting samples, making mistakes, sending it back again, getting the wrong order. My God, you're right. That it must have been an immense amount of time between those two things.
Yeah, I mean, you do have just-in-time processing and modern printing techniques. You can print to package, in the same way you can print to
talking about bottles and tubes and nozzles and
but really it's just sticking a new label on whatever they had before. So they might have like 500 bottles
of some random failed product, and they're like, slap this name on it, we'll just
slap
move
something.
a bunch
They're
of
going to
old
slap
stock.
a new label on it. So it's like when you get into the labeling, it's like you can just put on the new labels.
Sure, yeah.
Honestly, it could, just because this is what my company actually does. It is fascinating how quickly you can print to a package or print to a t-shirt. This is why every podcast has crazy t-shirts. Every person, you can just have these t-shirts, because this t-shirt, they have a warehouse full of green t-shirts,
right?
And then they get one that says put in this one, and they throw it on real quick, and then they can do one t-shirt, and each t-shirt is a completely different image no matter which t-shirt they throw through it. And that's why these things tend to fade really fast. But life continues, It's not like the old days when you go to the mall and you get the really properly silk screened or ironed on vinyl decals. Those would last, but that's okay. Everybody's t-shirt will Thanos eventually. Moving right along. But there was this lead up time, which is why she could actually go on failed dates, start dating new people under the guise of She-Hulk, and establish the use of the She-Hulk brand, which is in its own way quite brilliant. if you think about it, and not like it was intentional, because it wasn't, but it was the path of least resistance for her. You know, she wants to have a moment, and in order to have a moment, she realizes that, why am I making myself be Jen, which is sad for Jen. And again, this is when she does that first fourth wall break as She-Hulk about Jen as a separate person.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a sad thing, it's like a piece of her that she was, through whatever traumas in life, was afraid to express. And now through this event, those doors don't exist anymore and she can be free. But when she's in this form, this image that she's adopted over the course of her life doesn't feel like it can express itself in that way. And in that form, it's like, oh man, I can be a part of myself that wasn't as free before. That's another way to look at it.
I mean, that is definitely a way to look at it. And that's sort of the idea. It's like when, like if we ever actually win the lottery and we don't have to have a job, and how much more fun would we have in our lives when we don't have to have a job? When, it's like, the fact of the matter is, like, for everyone who says, well, no, in the Star Trek universe, everyone's free to pursue their own passions. But the fact of the matter is most people are probably going to say, well, my passion is actually, watching TV, because I really love to read stories. And, and I don't know of any way that's going to be a big thing. But you know what? Hey, that's fine. We have replicators now. And as long as you have a place to sit and a pile of books and, and ham and eggs on demand, who wouldn't live that life,
Right.
It's a pretty good gig. But
and I'm sure in the future, views and clicks will be so valuable that somebody could eke out a very minimal existence just by clicking on stuff. And if some like there's this whole movement in Japan or whatever, the Laydown movement. Have you heard of this? Where people,
no, I haven't.
It's like this movement that started on social media, and like the young people are adopting it. They're saying the comforts and luxuries of life are so far out of reach that we're just going to stop trying. What would I have to do? The bare minimum. If I just laid there all day, I don't work, what's the bare minimum? And so like it's like this weird Zen philosophical thing that's caught on in the youth in Japan. And spreading to here. There's all Reddit threads for it, but
no offense. No offense. That's called hoboism.
No, I agree. I think it's I think it's sad as hell.
But I actually don't think it's sad. I think it's
terribly sad.
Oh no, man! I think the old. Haven't you ever heard the old King of the Road song?
Yeah, but that's different. I feel like that was meant with more the intention of exploring in freedom. These people are saying, I'm not going to engage with the world at all as a piece of protest or some
Oh, well, that's just silly. I mean, not for nothing. And here, that's the thing. It's like, if I did not have an entire ecosystem relying on me, I totally get being king of the road, I mean, I obviously hopping trains that can be dangerous at my age, but
well, yeah,
that's the thing. It's like, at a certain point, it's like, oh, you know what, hopping railroad cars, that's maybe not as much fun as it is in your 20s. If you're in your 20s and you can be a stabbing hobo or a singing hobo, it's your choice,
right? These days, you sit down wrong and your back is like bothering you for a week.
Exactly. And it's like, oh my goodness. Anyway, but no, but I get the point, and the thing of this episode is that in this moment, She-Hulk is taking over, which is an interesting turn of events. Because we also, and this is an interesting thing that we're going to see here, because as we know, Banner only went back to being Banner because he thought it would help his arm heal. Now, why he would think his arm would heal better as Banner than as Hulk, I don't know.
No, I think wasn't it because, I thought he healed because of her blood.
No, but because originally he's the Hulk,
right?
And Smart Hulk has his arm in the sling,
right?
And then by Shang-Chi, he's back to Banner. but he still has his arm in a sling. And he actually tells Jen in the first episode, my arm is getting better. It's slow, but it's getting better.
But doesn't he say something about he used her blood and his arm is completely healed now?
That's what completely healed him was her blood. But before that, when he's using the regulator, that's limiting how much. Yeah, keeping him from being able to Hulk out. It's actually the fact that being human allowed his body to heal in a way that when he was the Hulk, his body couldn't heal.
Interesting.
It is interesting because it does seem well, and I guess it's sort of what you kind of call what we in the old gaming used to call aggravated damage. Like some damage you could heal quickly, but other damage you had to heal using, it was just as bad as if you got if you're a werewolf and you get stabbed with silver, that's as bad as getting stabbed with anything.
Perhaps it's one of those things that has a prolonged healing time. And if he's hulking in and out and in and out, the processes of what that body needs to focus on, healing, defense, it gets confused and it's like, like they say, that was it the quote from Fight Club, that wound on the top of your mouth that would heal if you could just stop tonguing it.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, that's sort of what we see with Jane Foster in Thor: Love and Thunder, which is that every time that she could fight the cancer if she didn't keep on turning into Thor. But every time she turns into Thor, it undoes all of her progress against the cancer.
But it makes her feel so good.
Oh yeah,
powerful.
Which, quite frankly, being the Hulk makes her feel so good. Makes him feel so good.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting thing because, with the Hulk and Banner, there is two separate personalities and they talk to each other, right? But with Jen, it hasn't been that from the beginning. She has much more control over it. I don't know. Maybe it just doesn't make me feel good. I don't want it to be two different people. I don't want it to be two different personalities. No, I want it to just be her. I think that it's a much nicer story if it's just her.
Well, the issue is, and here's the big overarching thing. It is just her.
Good.
And the fact of the matter, it is just her. And Banner is the Hulk as well when he's himself. He has
but Banner doesn't exist in the Hulk when he's the Hulk, right?
No, he does. There is nothing in the Hulk that isn't Banner, and there's nothing in Banner that isn't the Hulk.
Yeah, but even perceptually, there isn't a marked delineation.
Well, that's the it's the DID, the dissociative identity disorder.
Yeah, I don't think it's that though. That's what I'm saying. I hope it's not that. I don't think it's.
No, it is that. It absolutely is that, because it is something that is brought from his trauma. And this is the thing, is the more his personalities integrate.
No. With the Hulk, sure, but not with Jen. I don't think Jen and She-Hulk is dissociative.
No, it's not. Disorder. It's not in any. Right. It's not in any conceivable way.
Right.
But So okay. So here's the big reveal at the end of this episode. Okay. At the end of this episode, you see Puglisi's sneaker collection. And they're all based on superheroes. And there's a couple XMen, there's a Deadpool, things like that. There is a Thing sneaker.
Wait. So X-Men exist in this universe already?
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Apparently, well, maybe some of them do. Maybe they just recently showed up, or maybe they've been around, but they weren't a big deal.
Fantastic Four exist in this universe, and
that appears to be, if what we've heard about this, because apparently Marvel came in and said what sneakers they could draw and what sneakers they couldn't draw. What
really?
they
could do in the movie with X-Men sneakers in it, in the show.
Yeah, when they do, this is the end credit. They said, well, this one doesn't have an end credit scene.
It doesn't.
Only
How?
if you don't think the end credits are the scene. So I don't know if you ever remember watching things like Tiny Toon Adventures or Animaniacs. You might have been too old, because I was too old.
Oh
but
no, I
still
definitely
watched
remember. But
Yeah.
he's not a man, he's a chicken, boo.
Okay, so yeah. Did you ever read the credits at the end of it?
No.
Oh, okay. There were always gag credits in it.
Like Mad Magazine.
So, exactly. So once me and my friends realized that, we would watch it really intensely just to see, and that's a weird thing for me. I always read the credits. At least I like to try and read the credits as much as I can, but I would always catch what the weird credit was. And that's how people realize, like, oh my gosh, there's like these little gag credits. All of the She-Hulk all of the She-Hulk credits are in their own end credit scene. There's always something in there, which is why I think it's really telling that you see she's got Shield files on her desk, which we've had since the beginning. Because I think the actual point is going to be that there's going to be a lot of documented superhuman activity that Shield has kept quiet for years, but now
though, they're making Snickers about them.
Well, now the whistle is blown. Now, basically, you can't control.
That's crazy to me that they're in this universe. There is an X-Men and a Fantastic Four, and I don't know about it. That seems unfair.
Well, but here's the thing: if you think about people like the X-Men, if mutants aren't a real known quantity, which if mutations are relatively rare, they might not be, especially if people kept it quiet.
How
if
quiet?
Someone told you that they could read minds,
sorry.
No. Now, yes, that's the difference between when we started in the Marvel universe and where we are now.
I don't know if it makes me feel that I don't get to see the inception.
Oh, well, you might get to see it at some point. Maybe you'll get to. That's the thing. It's like whatever it's going to have been, it's going to have been in something that was off panel until it's on panel. Because we already know, because that's actually the entire reason why there's a superhuman law division. And as an example, Titania, the superhuman influencer, existed in this universe and apparently was referenced on the little what we have to watch out for puzzle board in Ms. Marvel when they're at the DODC.
Oh,
and you see all the photos and all the things up there.
So this must apparently be well further ahead than that. Is that what they're trying to tell us?
Well, what they're telling us is that that there just are now superhumans out there. Actually,
yeah, but if at that point she was on some government watch list and now she's an influencer peddling perfumes, there must be a gigantic time gap between those two ways of feeling about
because the DODC isn't. So here's the thing, and this is again why Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. will be canon. Because when Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had to fight a bunch of super powered people, you found out that S.H.I.E.L.D. had basically been arresting every person with superpowers and either locking them up or making them unable to use their powers for decades. And once they start releasing them, then suddenly there are these threats in the world. Because, and of course, that's the whole thing. Once S.H.I.E.L.D. falls, after Captain America, a Winter Soldier, suddenly that S.H.I.E.L.D.'s actual job, which was keeping these threats contained, stops being their job. And now S.H.I.E.L.D.'s job is to actually just fight Hydra, which it should be. But as a result, all of the people that were hiding now get to come out. And you don't even hear about it because unless you're telling that story at that time, you don't notice it. because that's the idea. It's sort of like the Netflix shows. The Netflix shows all happened arguably in the same universe, but at the same time aren't a big deal. No one's looking for Daredevil or even Luke Cage because, quite frankly, they're too wild of cards. They don't know if they can trust them or not. They don't know if they can use them or not. So when Tony goes looking for other superpowered people to help him out, he's not sure he can trust a Luke Cage, because a guy with that much power and strength, yeah, he'd be useful, but is he really going to trust Tony Stark? Is he really, he went and found, not for nothing, a young nerd like himself that is going to be impressed by the name Tony Stark to bring into the fold. And then all the other superheroes are still out doing what they're doing, and that's the thing. If you think about all of the other superheroes we've encountered, Danny Rand isn't going to be impressed because he's a billionaire too. Luke Cage isn't going to be. I'm sorry.
Are we done with that? Because they've talked about bringing all of those other characters back, but nothing about Danny Rand, and I hope it stays.
Oh well, I mean, Danny Rand is always a possibility, but whether or not that actor will play him, or if the exact storyline they did with that will be what it is, we don't know yet. But as people will point out, there's actually several other Iron Fists they've already introduced into the Marvel Universe from that series. So honestly, we could get Colleen Wing Iron Fist very easily.
Oh. Did Davos die at the end of that? He did, right? His little bald buddy from because he would make a cool like evil Iron Fist. That'd be cool.
Anyway, yeah, but there's all these, but the point is that there's all these characters out there. Diamondback is still out there, who we know has the same genetic traits that probably helped Luke Cage become Luke Cage.
Yeah, but Diamond, he has to die. Diamondback has to die because he's going to be Blade.
Oh, well, the actor, yeah. Well, yeah, but the thing is, you could bring back another actor in that role and then have him interact with Diamond, with Blade, and say, "You look familiar." Yeah, you look familiar too.
Do we just become best friends?
Who knows? Who knows? I mean, and that's the thing. And that's the thing with Loki and variants. They've established themselves in a situation where they can introduce anything at any time. And the fact of the matter is, the idea that the Fantastic Four, who aren't superheroes per se, they're space explorers. None of them were going into this to go up against the Kingpin. They weren't fighting street crime. They were like, oh goodness, there's a Skrull invasion, and there actually is a Skrull invasion. So, the idea that these people are out there, that maybe they show up, maybe, and maybe they're social media influencers in some way or another. Although maybe it's even that the fact that they are older and more established, and, Johnny Storm, back in his day, yeah, man, if I could have been a social influencer back then, I absolutely would have been.
Imagine the TikToks I would have put out.
Man, flaming TikToks. Yeah, exactly, And you get Chris Evans back to play him, and that's perfect. It's just like,
or Michael B. Jordan, who knows?
Or Michael B. Jordan, man. I am so down. My only thing is, I want you to make Sue Storm black if you're going to make Johnny Storm black, because they're supposed to be this really closely related family. I don't mind Johnny Storm being black.
Was he adopted in that version?
No, she was adopted in that version.
Oh, okay.
That was the idea. Was
that?
Yeah, I mean, it's fine in its own right, but it's like, and for what it's worth, Nathaniel Richards is going to be black, so we got to get that in there somehow. So honestly, you bring back Michael B. Jordan as Johnny Storm.
Man, if there's a way to still bring back Killmonger, that's what I would want, ideally.
Yeah, well, we got to see what they do. We got to see what they do in Black Panther. I mean, that's the thing. And see, that's like, to me, that like everyone who's like down on the current phase of Marvel, I'm like, oh my gosh, do you see all the different wheels that are moving at one time? Do you understand that this is finally a freaking comic book multiverse, and we can really enjoy it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I like
I don't
it.
know.
That's
We're
me.
just spoiled. We're just really spoiled.
Yeah. Well, honestly, look, right now we live in a world where there is more Star Wars than ever before, more Star Trek than ever before, more Marvel superheroes before, even more DC superheroes, thank you very much, than ever before. There is so much genre fiction out there in really cool cultures that if you want to be a part of it, you can be in it. You don't have to be toxic. You can like both Star Wars and Star Trek, Marvel and DC, and just say, oh, yes, I love that. That was a fun superhero romp, and not be mad about everything all the time. And that would be a good thing, I think.
Right.
But anyway, okay.
Except
So
if
I
we're
think
talking about Batman versus Superman. I'm sorry.
I'm
That
sorry,
movie
what
was
about Batman?
I said unless we're talking about Batman versus Superman.
Yeah, it was
And then
not.
I apologize because
Yeah, I mean, well, but you know what? It made its money back.
yeah, hey, good for them.
I mean, this is the thing. It was not a flop by any actual metric that you would assess a flop by. But the problem with any of these shows, and this is what we've always said. It's
I
like,
mean, like no one's calling it a flop, but I'm just saying
no,
it was bad.
yeah, it was not a very well written story.
No.
That's for sure. And and that is, for what it's worth, it's on whoever wrote that script
Yeah,
and whoever
I would
directed
rather,
it.
aside from that 15 minutes where they actually Batman is beating up Superman, I would rather watch this show again.
Yeah, well, exactly, because it's a little too much. I mean, to be fair, and this is the thing, you can be really fair about it. You can look at how DC creates its characters and absolutely see like, oh, I see what they were doing there. I see what they were building. DC's characters tend to be gods among men. They tend to be anti-apotheosis, which is like when the gods come down and be among us, and how they try to live with us even though they are gods. And Marvel's heroes, for the most part, are very human level beings that just happen to become gods.
Interesting.
And this
I thought
and
they
this
struck the right chords with Man of Steel. That was exactly that, and it was beautiful, and I loved it.
Yeah, and a lot of people did. To be honest with you, I've never seen it. I have negative feelings about it, but then again, I grew up on I grew up on the Super Friends Captain America. No, I've never seen Man of Steel.
Wow. Oh, you're in for a treat if you ever get a chance. It's quite good.
I'm sure it is. I don't like, there's certain things about it that are there's certain things that have made me feel negative about it.
Well, sure. I mean, I think everything is going to have that, but I think it's all in where the balance is. Is the balance shifted more? Did they do enough good to make you go, I'm going to forget about that? It's like, and I think there's so much good in there that at least I was able to overlook almost all. If I don't even know what I would call the negatives, but I'm sure they were there, but I didn't care.
And you know what? To be fair, for all the negativity about Zod's plan and how poorly structured it was, or like how that doesn't seem like a very smart move.
The guy just woke up. He just woke up.
I know, but what it is I've realized that if you're a religious zealot, you're going to believe a lot of very contradictory and idiotic things.
And not to mention, can you imagine waking up and the trauma of recognizing that your entire race has been wiped out and your whole purpose for 100, I don't know how long they lived, for however long his life was to protect Krypton, and now all of a sudden you put me away because you thought my methods were too heavy-handed, and now none of you exist anymore, right? Like I couldn't do my job because you idiots and bureaucrats wouldn't let me do my job, and now it's I can see that being a gigantic a tough thing to do.
But again, it's about obsession. That's the thing. It's like Zod and his entire crew, because they had male and female Kryptonians on there, and Kryptonians don't even reproduce that way. They have more than enough genetic material to take care of themselves forever. They could go to Mars and live forever on Mars, do whatever terraforming they need to do on Mars, and rebuild the Kryptonian Empire right from Mars. They don't have to destroy this planet. They could, rebuild Mars in their own image and then come conquer this planet.
Why didn't he do that?
What?
Why didn't he?
Why
Was
didn't
it
he
more like a vengeful thing? Like, oh,
No,
you think you're better than us?
do think
I'm gonna take
it's
everything.
100%. I think it's 100% supposed to be that he's just so obsessed with the House of L and the need to destroy the House of L, or to have the House of L embrace his ideas. So, like, at first he will try and see. I know a lot about the movie, even though I haven't seen it, because I've read about it, which is honestly the nerdiest thing you can be. Is the nerd who's like, no, I've never actually read it, but I've read all of the theories on it. I've never been, but you think about most nerdery is that because no, I've never been to space, but here's what I read about it. So the whole idea is like he wants Kal-El to join him and to accept that his view is right. But when his view means killing all of these innocents, he's like, no, that's not a good idea. Now, why
I don't
Kal-El?
think he ever wants him really to join him. What he wants him to do is to be subservient to him and give up control and like join me, like I'm doing the right thing, admit I'm right, and then kneel before Zod.
Yeah, exactly. That's honestly some of the best writing ever was in 1970s 1970s Superman films. I mean that's really what it is. It's like I think they're always, and that's the problem with Superman, is they're always chasing when they got it right, and they never quite figure out why when they got it right it was so right, and when they got it wrong
doesn't really bode well for the new Joker movie they're planning.
No, actually, I think that one's going to be good. See, just like in the same way, I think that the first Joker was good.
I thought the first Joker was brilliant.
Yeah,
but your idea of like recapturing that magic, they're not good at that. And already they're like, we had something good. Guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna turn it into a musical.
See, buddy, I don't know. I can see. To me, I can.
Taika Waititi got too big for his britches, right? Look what garbage he pooped out.
I don't. Here's the thing. I'm going to tell you is I don't know if Love and Thunder was any worse than Ragnarok. I think Ragnarok just had the stakes.
No, Ragnarok was enjoyable. The jokes were well thought out. The comedy was subtle and technically efficient and brilliant. This was just haphazard, like something you leave on in the background. That's the best this movie is good for. Something you leave on in the background while you're doing something, just so your analytical brain is occupied while you do something else.
We'll agree to disagree. But that's the thing. It's like I'm not going to put Thor: Love and Thunder up on my list that high. To me, it's like Thor: The Dark World, which wound up becoming kind of people liked. Like even if people
it was
didn't
a good movie.
What?
Because it was a good movie.
Well, it was an okay. It was a good. Honestly, I like all of them, but I like everything. It's hard for me to really be impartial because it's like, oh no, I get what they did there because that's and this is what you can always say about any of these adaptations. These characters have been around for so long, have had so many iterations that quite frankly, you can do any of them in any number of ways, and there is a run that someone really loved that is going to be paying homage to. It's like a million monkeys and a million typewriters. Eventually, they're going to write Superman, and it'll be good. Or they'll write Superman and it'll be bad, but it'll be a Superman that was someone's first Superman, and that's important to them.
I just didn't need a prancing Maximus.
A prancing who?
Maximus.
Oh, you mean Zeus?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, he's playing a different character. Now he's Zeus.
And nor did I need a prancing Zeus.
Well, although I'll give you a point. There is a deleted scene that they shot where Zeus is actually doing a lot of fatherly advice stuff with Thor, which is really cool. It doesn't fit with the rest of the thing. That's the thing, is there was a lot of stuff they shot that was really good story-wise, but didn't fit with the story that they were trying to tell.
Well, yeah, they kept all the scenes that looked like they were shot by a 6-year-old on an iPhone for their TikTok.
Well, I mean, and maybe that's what Taika Waititi was going for. I don't know. This is the guy who did, What We Do in Shadows,
Fair
which is
enough.
a brilliant show, but very silly,
Mm.
and that's the idea. Is like, sometimes the great, there was a thing they taught me when I was taking class at Second City, which is like the two things that are funny are the grandiose made small and the small made grandiose.
Mm.
And whether or not like you have Satan trying to pick up people in a bar. The idea that Satan exists and he is the all-powerful lord of the underworld, but he can't get a date, that there is humor in that, at least to me. Or you have the person who is just so mad that I can't get this I can't find the opening of this plastic bag, and that becomes a whole scene. And you can do these two things where you can have either the small thing made big or the big thing made small, and in both cases they have a humor to them and they have a comedy. It's just about how you deliver it. But anyway, we have gone all over. I love this show, but I do find that we never talk about it. It's great, but it inspires so many other thoughts, and that I think makes for a good show.
I think that's what I enjoy about it too.
Yes. Any final thoughts on tonight's episode of She-Hulk, Mozz?
I loved seeing the helmet at the end, Daredevil's helmet. I can't wait to see where that leads. I've heard all sorts of rumors about Punisher making an appearance. So yeah, to your point, they might be readying us or buttering us up to take a dark turn. Soon.
And I've been saying I really think that's a real possibility.
I hope so, because that'd be such a cool move to totally psych people out that way.
Yeah, my big prediction is that there actually is going to be a scene with Melvin suing Luke, because he obviously clearly knocked off the original Daredevil design that he made. And so we're going to get into more white collar crime. The fact that Luke is just making a knockoff. He changed the colors and thinks that's enough. It's not enough. You need to make a material differentiation in the structure and design of the product, my friend.
I can't wait to see these new She-Hulk suits that he made. We didn't get to see any of those.
No. Well, we'll see him next episode, I'm sure. All right, Mozzie. If anyone wants to talk to you, write to you, how can they do that?
They can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And likewise, you can always write to us in that old-fashioned email way for the entire Capes and Lunatics family. Even if you don't like this show, you can write to us about other shows. You can write to us and tell other people how much you hate our show or how much you love it at CapesandLunatics@gmail.com. That's CapesandLunatics, all spelled out, all one word, at gmail.com. And of course, call us if you want to hear your voice on the air and make a request and do something silly or whatever you'd like. Talk about the shows we're talking about, or talk about shows you'd like us to talk about. Is there a streaming show that we're not talking about that you need to let us know how great it is? Call us at 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES. And while you're doing all that, go down into our show notes. Go to that little link that says Linktree. That's linktr.ee/CapesandLunatics. There you're going to go to our Linktree that has all of our shows, and there's a lot of them, for Capes and Lunatics and Capes and Lunatics Sidekicks, which is our DC-centric podcast, as well as all of our merch, lots of t-shirts, lots of aluminum mugs that keep your drinks cold all night, and many, many more adventurous things. And then when you're done with that and you'd like to write to me personally and say how you were personally offended by me, write me at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. And of course, follow me on the Twitters. I live tweet things whenever I feel like it. And I'm not doing a podcast at the same time. What I want to tweet is on at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieEsser. Look for the two E's in the middle.
For quality. Ding.
Thank you, Mozz. All right, Sheffield and lovers, it's been another grand and glorious adventure, sailing down the bounding mains of the internets and all the streaming content therein. Please come again next week as we once again fail Full steam ahead. Fail, sail, sail. Full steam ahead. Arr. Maybe we fail full stream ahead. I don't know. You be the judge and give us a call and let us know.
All right.